Before I begin demonstrating and explaining the exercises and drills that I chose, I just want to quickly cover a few coaching cues and things to look out for that will apply to all of these agility drills, just so I don't have to repeat myself. So in terms of visual focus, so when an athlete's changing direction and it's in response to an opponent, that athlete should be focusing on the shoulders, the trunk, and the hip. And then following that, they should redirect their attention to whatever new area to help them have their body follow the lead of the transition. So then in terms of body position for braking and reacceleration, controlling the trunk is really important in the deceleration portion because you want to avoid large amounts of motion in the trunk. And as they go through the stance phase, the trunk and the hip should both reorient themselves in whatever direction they intend on traveling, just so it's more effective. Body lean is really important to help with the proper force application through the ground when you have the proper alignment of the ankle, the knees, the hips, in the trunk, and the shoulders. So then another thing to keep in mind is having a low center of mass during those changes of directions, especially when it's like a side shuffling change of direction. In terms of leg and arm action during these drills, you want to make sure that the athlete understands how to effectively brake and make sure they're aware of how to have an effective range of motion at the knee, because we want to avoid a stiff leg braking style. And a good cue for another leg action is to push the ground away, and this is really applicable for those shuffling drills. And in terms of arm action, we want to obviously have a powerful arms to help facilitate the leg drive, but we want to make sure that the action of the arms isn't counterproductive and causes excessive swaying of the torso. The first drill that I'm going to show is a 505 agility test, actually, but I'm going to be using it as a drill. So I have marked off a starting line cone, and then the next closest cone is at 5 meters, and then the furthest cone is at 10 meters. So you start at the starting line, the athlete starts at the starting line, and they sprint all the way down to the furthest cone, which is 10 meters away. And when they hit that cone, that's going to be their turning line. And from there, they will turn around, pushing off that line, and sprint, so recelerate through the 5 meter line, which is the finish line. And as they pass that 5 meter line, that is when they can start to slow down. Next drill that I'm going to be demonstrating is the Z drill, and I'm going to have the soccer players completing this at full speed. But what's going to happen is there's going to be 4 cones set up like a Z, like it is here, and the athlete is going to start at cone number 1, and they're going to be in an athletic position. Obviously, their center of mass should be lowered, and their stance should be a little bit wider than shoulder width, because they are going to go into a side shuffle to the cone that's right to the left of them. And once they hit that cone, they're going to obviously keep that center of mass at a constant height, and then push the ground away and turn and sprint towards that cone that's diagonal. Once they reach that cone, this is where they focus on the decelerating phase and transition to a shuffle on that second step. So once they hit that second step, they'll go right into the shuffle to the last cone. I also want to add that the athlete in the video should be focusing more on pushing the ground away during their shuffle versus almost having their heels click together in the middle, which is incorrect, and they're also standing up a little bit too much at the end. Final drill that I'm going to be demonstrating is the Y-shaped agility drill. You're going to have the athlete to the starting line, and then 10 yards in front of them is going to be a coach or a person that will be giving them cues. There needs to be a cone or a marker 5 yards from the starting line, because at this point, as the athlete runs, when they hit that 5-yard mark, the coach is going to direct them left or right or whatever cue they're given. And once they get that cue, they're going to plant and accelerate either to the left or the right. And that's why it's called the Y drill, because it's shaped like a Y, and there will be cones at 45 degrees, and they'll be about 3 yards to the left and the right of where that coach is standing. So it's really important, like I said, to just make sure that they're planting and changing direction as soon as possible, accelerating to whichever direction they were given. I also wanted to point out that we were in a really narrow hallway and didn't have quite enough room to properly accelerate in the Y direction, the 45 degrees. So this is why the athlete in the video doesn't look necessarily correct, because there's a wall in the way. So if you were in an open field or an open space, this part of the drill would look a little bit different, and they would, like I said, accelerate into the desired direction.